Namaskar. Welcome to the Indian AdGeek's episode number 27. My name is Vishal Mehra. It is June, which means the global advertising world is currently staring down the barrel of two massive milestones. The absolute tech tsunami, that is Apple's WWDC kicking off tomorrow, and, of course, the upcoming creative pilgrimage to the south of France for Cannes. Joining me today is Laurent Thevenet, Head of Creative Technology for APAC at Publicis Groupe. Laurent lives at the exact intersection of wild creative ambition and engineering reality. If a creative team dreams it up, he and his team figure out how to actually code, build, and deploy it across the APAC. Welcome to the Indian AdGeek, Laurent.
Thank you. Thanks, Vishal. Thanks for having me.
Laurent, I've been doing my homework before our meeting. You started as an engineer, ran your own studio and startup, and then moved into global networks. I want to know, what was that moment when you realized code could be a creative medium rather than just being a functional one?
So yes, I'm an engineer by background. I will not say proper engineer, but back-end engineer, like serious engineering. So software engineering. But all my life, I've been having creative side quests. I moved to Singapore in 2008. So I was part of a program here in Singapore where you could raise money through the government. At the time, it was Web 2.0. It was a big deal. And when I did that, I actually worked on. We had creative output as part of the startup because we were doing video content program, but we were putting online. That was beginning of YouTube, so it was not on YouTube. It was its own platform. But I met, creative people. When I started mixing with them on the side, socially, etc. And I was very much the only non-creative person with being an engineer. So I don't have engineer friend, if that makes sense at the time. And so I would say this happened organically. I started having much and more interest in, these different creative practice. So again, I was already doing music on the side, but started looking at art, started looking at other things. And there is something, a discipline that is very fascinating in that space, which is new media art, right? So I started looking at that. And I found online people talking about creative technology. So I was Googling and that's where I realized, oh, I'm probably that. Because as a small studio, you're kind of being exposed to agency. They always look for partner to work with, the big agency. And so I was one of these small studio in Singapore, and so I encountered some of them and meeting people. I got proposed to join BBDO. So I was not exactly into advertising, Vishal. If I must say, I know advertising because in France it's quite part of the culture because we're a big agency like BETC, BETC. Obviously, we have Cannes in France, So I would say it's known to the public.
Head of Creative Technology, APAC, can mean wildly different things. I want to know what exactly you do at Publicis.
I've only been in 3 agencies in my career. So I was at BBDO for a few years, 3 years or so. And then I went to RGA, which is, design agency, which I guess was right because it was more systematic. So I also could play on my systematic side at the same time, like work on product design and stuff like that. And when I joined Publicis Group, I joined as a combo of what I learned at BBDO and what I learned at RGA. Because I'm not working at Publicis, I'm working at Publicis Group, meaning I work across, it has been 5 years now. I work across all agency of Publicis Group in APAC and across all market of APAC. The BBH of this world, the Leo Burnett of this world, very creative shop. And we will talk ideas, novelties, first of its kind type of campaign, type of work. And then on the other side, you will have Sapient, where we talk more like design and product and transformation, um, and in between you will have media agency, data department, etc. So where I'm kind of the glue in between everyone here, because I can speak tech, and then I can speak to others about creativity. So I can go in a meeting and talk about Amazon Web Services infrastructure and go into the next meeting where we talk about some crazy idea. That's what I would say I'm able to do now. And there are people who are already creative tech, or who are not creative tech, don't have the title, but have the same mindset. So I have kind of built a network of talent across the APAC. So in each market, including India, we have great people in Mumbai, for example. Maybe 25 people across the APAC who are able to push that. And we have an extended network of a couple hundred people who are just interested in the space and in constant communication with this core group. And so what you have is a creative technology mindset that is being spread around, in all market. Now, creative tech has been unofficially the most useful, or one of the most useful discipline, or the talent we needed to kind of glue everyone together around this. And that's fascinating, meaning AI is kind of complex, technically speaking. I mean, it's getting easier and easier to use, but to deploy, to integrate, it's still a technology.
From inside a large network like Publicis, what's the most interesting and maybe underreported story about what AI is actually doing to the creative process, Laurent? Not the headline narrative that we all keep reading, but what you observe on the floor day to day.
I would say, okay, the difference over time is that now we all use it, right? Everyone use it. How we use it, when we use it, what we use from the various AI technology offered to us. I mean, it will vary grandly, but I would say every step is impacted, Vishal. From people planning for a campaign, if we look at a traditional creative campaign, like when you plan, when you make your strategy up front, we have new tools that help us. It's not about doing it faster. It's also about being smarter, having access to more data, and being able to process that data much more rapidly than we used to do before, for example. Because one thing we do at Publicis Group is we have access to this mountain of data that is quite unique to us. Meaning we have public signal like everyone else, that are available out there, but we also have like a lot of information about people and exclusive data partnership extra. So strategies planner will kind of use that to be much more precise, right? And much more accurate. They also have like historical campaign information, so they could brief. So we have exclusive AI wrappers built upon the AI system where it's fed with quality creativity. That helps us, but it's not replacing anything. What the conclusion in 2026 is, great idea still, and I think I'm just repeating what's being shared on LinkedIn a lot right now, but it's creativity still come from great creative, right? So that didn't change. So, but this system help us a lot, right? They help us quickly write down things, like just figure out new micro territories in the space we are heading to creatively. And then when it comes to producing the work, I guess it's a bit similar, right? Do you want to put more AI slope out there, or do you want to be using AI to go into novel space, right? So there is, I would say we have the ability to kind of fully automate everything. It really depends on the type of brief we get, the client we work with, what they want, what we suggest as well, right? So I would say we have the ability to kind of dial up and down AI.
But where is the most impact? Is it brief decoding? Is it ideation? Is it production? Is it
Right
optimization?
now, yeah, okay. Let me answer you on that. Yes. Right now, it's definitely on the upfront part, right? There it's so when we are strategizing and making a plan, briefing the team, whatever preset can be, I mean, benefit massively from AI. That's clear. And on the end part, we are shortcutting. Let's say you do a film. If you want to do a storyboard this day, right? We used to do like a process where you have animatics, for example. I mean, you may draw your storyboard, animatics, and all of that. You can skip part, right? You can go straight to visualizing things, right? To what you want it to be. It may even be your end product. So the impact, I would say, is definitely upfront and is getting there at the bottom end, because obviously I mean, if you look at video model in the last 6 months, something like Cdance from ByteDance, from BytePlus is amazing, right? So clearly there is going to be an impact there as well. And what I see and what's interesting is this debate happened in my other space engineering as well, which is, oh, we don't need engineer, or we don't need designer, or we don't need creative, or we don't need art director or filmmaker. But the reality is ultimately the one that I see benefiting the best from this tool and creating the best output are still the original, I mean, the OGs, I would say, right? They are now back into a great filmmaker that has adopted that is still the best filmmaker, for example, or a great art director that adopt this technology. We clearly sit above the rest. Now, what's interesting is you had people, and another impact, because you talk about where's the impact. So impact is on part of the process, but the impact is also on the team that work on this. Because what we see, another impact is we have talent, but we're never in the creative process in the past, Vishal. And because they have adopted AI early, or they have made the effort to kind of learn it, but somehow were creative people at the back. But they were kind of not creative people by title. They were creative, right? They have a seat at the table now, because so the hard copy thing is kind of dead, alive in a way, if you think about it. Now we are more talking about creatives.
You've said AI is foundational rather than differentiating. Absolutely, considering the times we live in. If everyone has the same tools, Lauren, what actually becomes the competitive mode then? Is it proprietary infra like Core AI and Marcel, or something less tangible perhaps?
I think there are two differences. The first thing is, historically, Publicis Group is very secure, right? We are not hackers by nature. By that time, I mean, we have hackers in the organization, but we are not just like taking unnecessary risk, right? When we are working on campaign, etc., when it comes to data and safety and all of that. So that means that, yes, we may have access to this model, but we only use model that protect our client, that protect ourselves, etc. So there is a clear thing there. But so that means, yes, we have access to all the model, but not the same as every consumer. We have access to enterprise quality model, right? That's number one. And that will be the same for corporate competitors, right? The others. If you draw a vertical line, at the bottom you would have data, and at the top you would have talent, right? So the moat is there. So data, we have acquired a fair bit of companies in the data space to get access to exclusive data. And that data obviously is ingested by the model, training model, fine-tuning model. So giving us result that you may not get elsewhere, right? And then at the top, you would have talent. So right now, talent is very critical. So we are making sure we are getting the best people we can get, for example, in the creative space. And so this is critical. We truly understand that the future of our creative people, our creative humans, I would say, will depend on this creative human being not being robots, right? I think that's quite critical, Vishal. So we are looking for people who are different. So who have, yes, the ability to connect left and right side of their brain. That's number one. I guess the creative tech practice is kind of going to blur itself, because it's going to be the new normal of what people bring to the organization. They may not be engineer, but just nerdy creative, I would say. So we are going to get more and more of that. As a group, one of our proposition right now is called connected identity. So we are able, for example, to bring all aspects of what we deliver for a client across the full spectrum of what they do, from media to creativity.
Where do you personally draw the line between AI as a craft tool and AI as a creative author? And what's that one part of the creative process that, Lauren, you think must remain um, uh, technologically inefficient, to stay genuinely human?
There's a lot of conversation around crafts right now. I think it's getting to a point where machine have the ability to output quality craft rapidly. By that, I mean, when I say craft, I mean 2 years ago, you would have to probably generate 200 images to get one good image. Okay? Today, model like Nano Banana 2, for example, or Pro, whatever, or C Dream, or you name it, a GPT image 2 I just launched a couple of weeks ago. They can get to quality output much faster. So you can imagine we will get to one prompt or one generation is good in the future, right? So that's why the concept of craft is still needed, because humans need to decide on what is good or not. I think is the wrong terminology. We should not say human will decide on craft, because machine can produce craft. And same with copy slowly, right? So for example, internally at Publicis Group, I would organize a monthly or bi-weekly design meeting, creative tech meeting as well, where teams share what they are up to. And it's kind of an open forum. This is internal only, across agency. And people will first be excited because they see what other teams are doing, but at the same time, you're constantly raising the bar.
Before we move forward, a quick reminder to all of you listening: please like and follow the show on the app of your choice. It really helps. Thank you. All right, moving forward, if we look across APAC, Lauren, where do you see the most underrated pockets of creative technology experimentation? And which market, according to you, is doing the most original work at the intersection of culture and technology, like you used to, like you prefer to explain, and work that is traveling globally as well?
I think your country, number one, is definitely doing that. Leo Mumbai or Leo India is amazing. So, by the way, got rewarded for that, in Cannes in the last few years, many times, and got the biggest prizes. And so that's number one. And they do that because internally they have a unit called Apollo 11, which is a unit of, I will not say creative technologies, but futurists, probably the right terminology, right? Like a mix of talent who are just always one step ahead, no matter where they came from, their background, etc. And so they infuse in the rest of the Leo and beyond, by the way, organization in Publicis Groupe India. So that's one. So Publicis Groupe India is a key leader. And I'm not saying that because we're having this conversation, is proven. In the rest of the region, so you have big market that produce regularly good work. So China, Australia, New Zealand, especially Australia and New Zealand, classically they have produced great work, and we are doing amazing work from there. We just won a Grand Prix in Spikes. We one of the campaign for one of our client in Leo, Australia, Suncorp, for example, for digital experience. So that was in digital craft. So if I'm thinking again about creativity and technology, we have in Singapore, you will have that, because Singapore as a country, it's a magnet for global talent. So there's a lot of great people here. For example, we have Le Pub, Leo, BBH here in Singapore, and we have done like great work around smart glasses with Snap, and with client locally. We have done work with Heineken for Le Pub, which is one of our, I would say, dedicated, an agency dedicated to one client initially, which is Heineken, Le Pub. And interestingly, if I take Le Pub as an example, their structure is that they don't have a structure. Creative team don't have a structure, so they would have, and by that I mean you will have technologists in the mix, right? They are not even questioning why the person is there, so it's natural for them. So the organization is like that. BBH also in Singapore, where we have done great work for McDonald's, for Tiger Beer as well. In the past, we have done like fashion tech. We have done recently we did something where we can actually adapt the controller of your Nintendo console, where we have a McDonald's fries holder that goes in between the magnet of the, oh my God, I forgot the name of the console, of that Nintendo console. It's called Gamey Fries for McDonald's. And for example, what's interesting, by the way, is when we do this piece of work, and in India, I mean, you can check what Leo has done. They've done a million things. But this piece of work are reaching out beyond the marketing industry.
I just want to say, you were talking about the Tiger Beer activation you were just talking about. I think it's
Yeah.
called Tiger Summer Puffer. They had the
Yeah, correct.
coffee
That's the one.
toppings.
Yeah, that's the one.
I think it was phenomenal. I saw it,
Yeah.
and I think it was cool because it was not just an ad film. It was more like a experience.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's where that's fusing culture and fashion and technology and creativity.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
really is the sweet
Yeah.
spot. So
Yeah.
I think that did phenomenally well, and I think that's why it became so culturally shareable also. People want to share cool
Yes.
stuff that they come across, and for a brand, nothing could be more, nothing could be better,
And
right?
it was done, I mean, to give you an idea, a perspective on how these things come to life. So it's initiated in between Le Pub and BBH in Singapore, a working collaboration where we have creative technologists who are literally prototyping this in an extremely dirty way. How the liquid which was used, I mean, in that case, the beer used to cool the person, right, through the vest, would work. So think of it as like the pipe in your house, very much, right? So how that would work. And then once we kind of knew this was reachable, we worked with a couple of great talent we know from an external studio in Japan to actually bring that to life properly. Like they were, can't remember the name of the studio, but working with them, and then fashion designer at the same time in London. So it's like it's a big organization to come up with that. So because the initial prototype, you will not wear it; it will look horrible. You can imagine. But we, like we test, we kind of sold the idea once we knew it was doing.
You're building centralized capability in Singapore for a massively fragmented region. How do you ensure that does not produce templated technology that ignores the hyper local cultural nuance of markets like India, of markets like Vietnam or Indonesia, or so many other markets in the region?
So what's happening in Singapore is, I think you're talking about the Marcel AI hub, maybe, right? So I guess this is different. It's not creative technology per se. It's more it's a team of engineers and designers who are focused on building AI-powered solution for client, meaning tools, right? Things we can use internally, things that can be used in collaboration with our client, more than to be used directly on creative campaign or output directly. So, but that team will be kind of a back engine to many things we do in all the markets. So when it comes to the local nuances, we have our extended network of both creative and technologists in market. So or planners and strategists. So that means we are truly respecting that. By the way, AI, interestingly, has the ability to, and the data we have provide us the ability to, like, kind of pre-make that difference across market and the various sensitivity. So just to also answer, we are not centralizing creative technology and creativity, but remain distributed. So it's purely AI engineering, I would say, when required. Building the algorithm.
Creative tech often gets treated as a novelty or a finishing layer. How do you push it upstream, Lauren, into strategy and brief writing? And what organizational resistance does that encounter?
So when you sit with people in the room together physically, I think, and then when they know you, they will bring you at the beginning, right? So I think, by the way, creative these days, they don't wait, most of them, they kind of bring that up front. Um, but in general, if I catch anything too late, I would just remind the team, that it's late. So I would say there is a constant influence that we're trying to have to remind them that it's too late. But not just us, we cannot work, and beyond creative technology, we cannot work in the traditional waterfall. That's like when you do development, like traditional waterfall process, you cannot do that anymore. But at the same time, we also don't need an army anymore to do things. I mean, or less than we used to in many cases. So who do you bring up front, etc. Will vary. It will not always be creative technologies. It's just the right people at the right place. And to be honest, we don't have the patience for that. We don't have patience to wait anymore, because it used to be, like, oh, creative take the brief, and 2 weeks later they come back with something. And no, but we don't do that anymore at all.
Creative effectiveness measurement is still built on frameworks designed for television, designed for print. I'm wondering, how do you make the business case, Lauren, for creative technology investments when the measurement infra simply hasn't caught up?
That's interesting as a question. So we have framework when it comes to, let's say, if you launch an interactive experience, we have way to measure that, right? And so we have actually dedicated team focused on analytics, like interaction and things like that. So we have the ability to measure that. I'm not an expert in that space, so I will not go too deep on that, but we have the ability more and more to measure uh, all channels. What I think is difficult to measure is things that are out of the norm, traditional crazy idea that everyone is killing because it sounds like it has not been done before. Like, this is more of that space, but it's still extremely tricky. That makes sense. So we have the ability, I would say, where we have been not struggling, but it's how do we sell, how do we convince client that this idea is going to work, or maybe different from anything that has been done before and for them. And we have been putting new framework in place to kind of pre-test ID. That makes sense. Probably I can talk about this. By simulation, I mean we use actually AI system to anticipate what could be a reaction. Simplistic name at this stage, because we can simulate more than just focus group. We can very much simulate any work that goes out there. Because a media, for example, it was easier to kind of project what may happen with a media plan. Traditional ads that you put out there, you could anticipate how it may work. But anything that is different, like big creative idea from our creative, it's more about how do we convince our clients to buy things that are out of the ordinary. Because today, in this day and age, for anyone, anywhere, it's much easier to go back to the routine and avoid risk, because everything is uncertain. We don't know, what's next. But actually, I think it's the right time to take risk and be different.
You built La Collective inside Publicis, a group of hybrid minded people to tackle technology and creative reefs together, right? What did you design into that group that you almost never see in a traditional agency team structure, Lauren?
This is a cross-agency team, so it means it's not attached to an agency. So it's attached to Publicis Group indirectly, but ultimately anyone that is part of Le Collective of this team is, again, this is an internal denomination that we use because we also have Publicis Collective, which is something different, it's dedicated to specific client. But Le Collective is kind of our gang, I would say, internally of people who are, like you say, like-minded, hybrid, no matter their path or skilled originally. And it goes from, and to give you an idea of the scale of this, it goes from, it's not just in APAC, it's actually we have extended to the Middle East, to people in Europe as well, in Italy, because we have a connection with Le Pub there. So this is a large network of talent who may be creative technologists, designer, UX designer, brand designer, art director, copywriter, strategist, project manager. It doesn't really matter. All these people have the same mindset, which is constantly push the bar, right? And at the same time, constantly try. They are makers. I would say makers is probably their right denomination. Ultimately, Publicis Group is power of one. So we work as one group across agency. Our agency, extremely important. They have legacies, etc. But ultimately, our client more and more need, like this cross agency skill. So for us, we did that the same way. So this team can kind of tackle very much anything, be sure. So it's like I get a brief to do product design, I have people. I get a brief to do a new media installation out there in the street, we have people. I get a brief to do algorithm. And that team, by the way, is bigger than any creative technology practice I had in any agency before. And it's probably one of the biggest creative technology team you will have in APAC, if not the biggest, I imagine, across network.
When you hire for creative technology, what's the mix of code, craft, design sensibility, and business understanding do you look for? And which of those is usually hardest to develop later if it's not already present there?
Interesting. It really depends. It really depends the background of the person, obviously. If the person comes from a creative background, art or something else, or if the person comes from an engineering background, like code or hardware as well, in some case, you have to develop the other side. They may have part of that already as you hire them, or they may already be established. It really depends on the seniority of these people, obviously. But I would say, okay, if they are junior, sometimes they don't know they are creative technologists. I had intern in the past, for example, in my previous agency, where I could literally see the person was different, just talking to them, but they don't know. But you develop that, right? You help them develop that oversight, in a way. Over time, you give them the freedom to learn, and you give them mentors to develop that as well. We do that a fair bit, where they have their own one-on-one internal connection, with people from the other side, to discuss, to exchange. So that's number one. But then the more they are, as if they are more mid-level or let's say senior people, you would expect them to kind of have a clear understanding of the other side, whatever side they are from. Because the creative technologies is no more just an engineer is a creative also. And being a creative is, by the way, is what is a creative? I'm not a creative the way people will think about creativity. They think ideas. I'm very bad at ideas, for example, Vishal. I'm much better at craft. But then I know some creative technologists who are damn good at ideas. Amazing if they can have a mix of an exact balance of craft, technology skills and craft, creative craft, right? That would be amazing, creative craft and idea. But that's a unicorn, right? It's very difficult. So you will have the balance will not be perfect. What we want is people who are able to communicate with people who are different from them. they are problem solver in motion in a way, right? And to be honest, again, creative technology, I'm not a big fan of the name, but it's the less worst name for the discipline. But over time, I have encountered everything. You have creative engineer, design engineer, UX engineer. But in Google, it will be called UX engineer, for example. Was the one bridging the gap in between the designer and the technologists who are not exactly talking to one another, so they are in the middle. So you would have that thing everywhere. In Frog, for example, a design agency will be called a design technologist. So you have this role exists in different shape and form in many places as a bridge.
If you were advising an independent agency founder today, okay, what what two or three creative technology bets would you insist they make in the next 12 to 24 months to stay relevant? What kind of people they should get on board?
There will be a pre-AI and post-AI in the sense that any new innovation or emerging technology that will come in the future will kind of be powered by AI. AI will be associated to it. There may be something else as big as AI coming at some point in time, but for example, uh, if we take the computer vision space, by that I mean the AR VR space, which was like kind of associated with the metaverse, but that was wrong probably, because it's older than the metaverse. Is probably more, it will be relevant at some point in the future, but that space is massively powered by AI algorithm as well, right? So AI is kind of associated to it. And by that I mean like the Apple Vision Pro, the Meta glasses, etc., or similar device coming out of China. And so I think there is a space where the physical world is going to be bridged to the digital world, and that's still extremely relevant. The shape and form of that is a bit unclear, but what 15 years ago with Google Glass, you remember, or 10 years ago, the Apple Vision Pro doesn't seem to be a success, but we know it may be a thing. The VR space is kind of dying. People will prefer to have like an AR or mixed reality space. Also, at the same time, I mean, if I go around in Singapore, I cannot imagine people going around with just like these augmented devices unless they fit, and you will know that, right? Fit the natural behavior of these people. So that's why the Meta glasses seems, I hope they don't kill that because it seems the right. That's number one.
Yeah,
Number
and in
two,
fact, I
yeah,
read that Apple is also coming out with a similar form factor, Laurent.
yes,
So the Vision Pro, they are trying to compress all that technology
yeah,
as much as they can into that same, sunglass design form. So we'll see.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, AR, I think has still been AR on the phone. For example, I don't think the phone is the right factor. But the problem is like, what is the replacement of that? And so far, nothing has managed to be better than a phone, right? But like the bridge, physical, digital world, multi-layer. I think there was a thing during the metaverse that was talked about, and that was actually more for industrial purpose, which was digital twin. You remember that?
And,
It's
and digital
actually,
twin is
yeah,
across so many different industries actually now.
correct. For example, I was watching something about the Sophie Stadium, the new stadium in LA for the NFL, etc. That stadium apparently has a digital twin, so they know exactly everything about it, every pipe, every person, where they are. They can look at it virtually or digitally, it seems. Don't just read the marketing press, just look at everything. Read research paper and look at the tech press, look at what's happening in everywhere, right? And so that's very important. The autonomous agent space is obviously OpenAI acquired open cloud, but there is another agent called Hermes. I don't know if you heard about it, which is I mean, there are many in that space, but we're doing the same thing. But there is one that make the most noise.
And finally, Lauren, if you had to bet on one emerging technology that advertising is currently underestimating, and of course, it cannot be artificial intelligence, everybody already is talking about AI. What would it be?
Well, I don't know if this is going to impact the industry, but I think quantum computing is coming much faster than everyone thinks. I was trying to understand it, the concept of qubits, which is very different to traditional engineering and computing. And for me, so I have to get used to that. First, it will accelerate AI. So it kind of, like I was telling you, everything is kind of tied to AI. But at the same time, over impact, I don't know, but it will be a multiplier in the millions to anything we do today. So there will be an impact for sure. So people need to look at it, because I think we're looking at maybe in the next 4 to 5 years to see the first thing like that hitting the market. Yeah.
And with that, I have to thank you, Laurent. Wonderful chat. Probably one of the more interesting conversations I've had on the Indian AdGeek. Thank you very much.
No problem. Can I suggest you should talk to Raj in Leo Mumbai? Fascinating character.
What an incredible chat with Laurent. It is always brilliant to talk to someone who looks at code and canvas with the exact same level of creative ambition. So much to learn for me, certainly. Next week, episode 71 of the Indian AdGeek features a special roundtable with Behramji Ghariali and Sean Mendes. If you've enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe, leave us a review, drop a rating, and share it with someone who might enjoy it. The Indian AdGeek streams on all major podcast apps. I'm active on social, everywhere. Hit me up with your feedback at Vishal1Mehra. Until next time, keep your creative antennas tuned and your AdGeek flag flying high. Stay quirky, stay curious, and keep geeking out.